Hello. So today's academy session number 67, we will talk about state of the Enfield CAPI and so today's agenda, we will talk about the app settings, what all the settings we need to do in the app, or what are the recommended things to have the Enfield CAPI app work more smooth and efficiently. Then interview/device logon. There are two types of method to log in into your CAPI client, either having an interviewer login or setting a device ID, which we call as a device login as well. Third, we will discuss about sync troubleshooting, what exactly needs to be done if you're facing any sync issues. Third, the last is the update regime. We will discuss about the updates or the processes behind the Anfield CAPI app and its versions. First, app settings. As soon as you um, open the Anfield CAPI app, and if it is your first time, you need to select the server. When I say server, it's the region where your domain is located. If it's in your if your domain is in Americas, you need to select Americas. If it is in APAC, you need to select Asia Pacific. Similarly for China or Europe. This is the server selection because it should match the domain. If you select any wrong server selection and try to log in using the credential, it will not work. Next, on the same page of that network tab in the Anfield CAPI app is a sync mode. Basically, there are three types of sync mode: basic, standard, and performance. So whenever you are performing a sync on your device, if it is set to basic, it is generally for those devices which are not very fast or reliable and you have a very poor network connection. The recommended is the standard, and if you have a very high and smartphone or tablet or device and you have very high uh, very good amount very good network, then you can select performance. However, we'll recommend to keep it as standard. If you have a um, if you have very old device which is not so good in performing and you have very poor connection, and if you set to performance, the sync will choke out. Next, in the settings tab of the Anfield CAPI app, there is a second tab which we call as a fieldwork. So basically there are three options: copy address. If it's tick, it will when adding a new address, it will automatically copy the data from the most recent entry added. Next is in how to show the address list. Basically, when you have a sampling point with addresses, and if it is this checkbox is ticked, then the last selected address spot in the address list will appear at the top. So basically, if you had selected an address and you started an interview, uh, and then you try to pause it or for a later stage, and then you log in, it will that address will particularly appear on the top of the list of the addresses. Now, last but not the least, on the same page is the resizing of the keyboard during the interview. So basically, whenever an input box appears, and when you click on it, the keyboard appears, and automatically the interview will adjust its size on the screen. Again, these are the standard and recommended settings. Then there is a last tab in the settings is a diagnostic tab. If you here you see a button called send database to Nfield server for inspection and a logging level. This checkbox should not be selected until and unless specified by the help desk. By keeping this checkbox ticked and you perform a full sync, it will take a good amount of time as well as a battery consumption. So basically this is used when there is a when there is an issue and the help desk team needs to look into it for further investigation. We will talk about this thing in the later stage of this academy. And then below you see after the logging level, you see the set device identity. So this will be covered in our second point about logging interview/device logon. Any questions so far regarding the app settings? Okay, next we have interview/device login. So basically there are two types of login you can use to log into a CAPI client. First is obvious interviewer login, where each interviewer has a unique username, and this is created using the interviewer tab in the Nfield manager. The pros of this login is you can track each interviewer from the Nfield manager. You can track how many successful interviews this interviewer has done, if their device is synced or not, and a lot of other things. Second, using those credentials, that interviewer can log in on any other device, on any Android device. It is not specifically binded to that particular device. The cons of interviewer logins are you have to create a separate login for each interviewer. Although you can create in a bulk by uploading an interviewer list in the Nfield manager, but yet you have to create a separate entity for each interviewer. Suspend interviews need careful management. When we say suspend interviews, it means that if an interviewer has started an interview and interviewer decides to pause the survey for a later stage, then suspend image is created, but that image is binded to that particular device with that particular login. If that same interviewer tries to log in on another device and tries to um, resume that pause survey, however, the interview will not be able to do that because that interview will start from the beginning and the suspend image will not come into the picture. Hence, the suspend interviews needs careful management. Second is the device login. In this method, the logins are tied to the specific device. In this particular login method, the the that when you set a device identity, the it is the same as is actually an interviewer username. It's bind to the device, and the interviewer has to just enter a password. It is much more easy to log in compared to an interviewer login because you need to enter three different parameters when you are using interviewer login. When it is about device login, you just have to enter a password. The pros of login device logons are less risk of losing suspend interviews because those because that interview is done on that device and with just one password you can resume that survey, and less logins to maintain. Obviously, if you have 4 devices and if you set it a device identity, and if you have multiple interviewers, you still need to have just 4 logins for those 4 devices. However, there are still some cons to this method. The one and most obvious is that you will not be able to connect an interviewer to an interview based on the standard data. You will not be able to uh, connect the dots which exact interviewer has done that interview, because that interview is done using a device login method. We already have a separate video academy on this topic, which is academy video number 59. You can obviously check it, log in on our NIPO website and go for academy videos and search for the video number 59. There is a specific or dedicated academy for this topic. Okay, so we all know how our interviewer login works. I will just give a quick demo. So this is an interviewer login page where interviewer needs to enter domain name, the first input box, the second input box is the username, and third is the most obvious password. This is the most obvious interviewer login. Now, if you want to uh, set or use an device login, for that first you need to have a interviewer with a supervisor toggle. Go to the interviewers tab, select your interviewer. If you see on the left hand side of that interviewer, there is a toggle. If you turn it on and save it, now this interviewer is in a supervisor mode, and this interviewer can set device identity on that device. First I need to sign out. As you see, I synced my device and now I'm able to set a device identity here. Let's say and I need to provide a device identity and then turn on the enable device signing. When you turn it on, this device will be linked to this particular identity and this particular domain. Then simply I have created an interviewer with the same name as I set the device identity. Now, in the Nfield CAPI app, if you see, this is a device identity, which is nothing but your username of that interviewer. I just need to enter and I'm able to log in using a device logon. If you note in the diagnostic tab, this interviewer is not allowed to change or disable the device sign-in. It can only be done by the supervisor interview with a supervisor toggle on. Okay. So that was a pretty good example of how you can set or log in using a device logon. Any questions?
No, we have
Okay.
no questions so far.
Okay. Then the next topic is troubleshooting. As we discussed in the first point of this academy, that app settings, that if you have very unstable or poor Wi-Fi network connection and your device is not so stable or it's not so good in performance, and you can set it to basic, where the sync will take more time than the usual, but it will be able to sync properly. Next, send database to Nfield only be enabled when asked by the help desk. So in case where you have an issue that you have synced the device and but you are still not able to see those interviews in your data files, and in and in after in and even after the investigations performed by the help desk, we are not able to figure it out, then we will ask you to enable that tick box in the Nfield CAPI app so that the logs are also sent to the Nfield for further investigations. Please note, do not turn that on by default, and it should be only selected when asked by the help desk team. Having this tick always will also take a good amount of time while performing sync, and it will also create a larger database in the Nfield, which is not recommended. And the logging, it should be information only. It should be set to debug only and only when asked by the help desk team. So in case if you you encounter an issue and where where you where the device is synced, but still you're not able to see the data in interviews in the data, then please always note down the date, time zone, and the interviewer ID and the survey ID when you report to help desk for further investigation. This will save a good amount of time, and we can start the investigation as soon as possible. Okay. The next topic is update regime. So basically, um, we receive a lot of questions sometimes that we have an older Android device and we are not able to sync and etc etc. So basically, first thing we need to understand is that CAPI app should only be downloaded for the from the Google Play Store and and not from any and not from anywhere else. You can only download the latest version of Nfield CAPI app from Google Play Store. There is no way you can download a previous version of CAPI app. We release several versions of CAPI app every year. So as of today, um, the current version on the Google Play Store of Nfield CAPI app is 3.3, and the CAPI app can be installed on any Android device. The CAPI app is now currently it is supported for Android devices only and not for any other operating systems. Each app we release can communicate with Nfield server for around 2 years. So basically, it depends. The let's say the current Android version on your device is 13, which is still supported by Google. As soon as the Google stops providing the support for Android 13, then you cannot download or update the Nfield CAPI app from Google Play Store if you are still running Android 13. I mean, if it is stopped by the Google. So right now, the minimum requirement version for Android version for CAPI app is Android 13. And it is always uh, mentioned in our Nfield update TA emails whenever we increase our minimum Android version and minimum CAPI app version. So yeah, if Android version goes out of support by Google, then you cannot install CAPI app on that device from Play Store, or it cannot be updated. I mean, if it is already installed, you still cannot update to the latest version of the CAPI app from Google Play Store. Then the best practices we say is always keep the Nfield CAPI app to the latest version and across all your devices fleets, so that all your devices have this latest version and it does not run into any issue. Um, the most common answer, the questions we receive is about uh, the Android versions or the Android devices when trying to buy new devices. So basically, when you buy new devices, it is always recommended to buy devices with the latest Android version. The reason behind it is, let's say if you buy a device which is not on the latest version, let's say if it is running on Android 14, and and when the and when Nipo uh, increases the Android version to 14, then you you might have very few months or year, let's say 1 or 2 year to use that device, because if Android 14 is also gets out of support by Google, then you cannot you can no longer use that device to update the CAPI app or install the CAPI app. So it is always recommended to, whenever you purchase a device, it it should have a latest Android version with at least 2 or 3 years of major OS upgrade. Uh, it's like being cheap now will cost you more later. Okay, so that is all about update regime. recap. App settings, as we discussed earlier, what are all the settings you need to have. You always keep the sync mode on standard, always have the correct server selection. Do not ever always keep the send database check tick box on until unless specified by the help desk team. Next, interview/device logon. There are two types of logins. One is the standard interviewer login, where you need to enter domain name, username, and password. There are some pros and cons for interviewer login. Regarding device logon, you first need to have an interviewer with a supervisor mode. That interviewer will set and device identity on that particular device and in that app. Once set, then you need to create an interviewer with that same device identity as your username, and then that interviewer will have to just enter a password. But again, it has its own pros and cons. That device will be binded to that particular domain and particular uh, username only. Next, sync troubleshooting. Again, if you encounter any issues when you report it to help desk, please always mention a date, time zone, interviewer ID, and survey ID for further investigations. Only after performing a full sync and you are not able to see the data, do not uh, enable the send database checkbox until unless specified by help desk team. Update regime, as talked about just recently, that uh, when you're planning to purchase new devices, always try to keep in mind to have devices, it should run on the latest versions, and plus you have at least 2 or 3 years of OS upgrade, so that you can use that device for a longer period of time. And once the device is not meeting the minimum Android version requirement, that device will not be able to uh, install the CAPI app from the Google Play Store, and neither will be able to update the CAPI app if that is already existing on that particular device. And if your CAPI app version is not meeting the minimum required version, in that case, you will not be able to perform sync, and hence the data will not be will will be present in the manager when you download the database. Okay. Any questions?
We don't have any questions right now. Let me recap one thing, because at one point we said that you can install the CAPI app on any Android version, but that is any Android version that is still in support by Google. Yeah. We said that. Yeah. We said that we clarified that later, but we started with saying any Android version, and that might be some.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are no particular questions
IPM.
so far.
Okay. Then the recording of this session will be available later this week. Manuals are already up to date. If you have any suggestions or any concerns, please write it to help desk team. Yeah.
Okay. We will have a last session for the CAPI, for the current state of CAPI next week. That will be about housekeeping on your domain. So we have no other questions. Thank you for your attention. Hopefully see you next week. Bye-bye.